I'm not the right person to speak about conceptualism because I wasn't trained that way and I don't think that way. You know, so I think you'd need to ask a conceptualist about that.
I've been living in Glasgow since September 2012, so that means that I'm like 2.5 years here. And I love the city, I love Scotland, I love Glasgow in particular, and I love working and studying and doing things.
It's a post-industrial city, right? And it has its charm. And it is a little bit tougher, but the warmth is here, and the people are always willing to engage here with new things. And generally people are quite accepting, and I think that's why artists stay.
Well, it's beautiful. I mean, the buildings are amazing here. I think that's something that gets really like forgotten actually.
Glasgow's quite odd in a way because it's quite a compact city, it's quite dense, but then there's also big areas of kind of open space. I mean, obviously it's a post-industrial city that's you hit a quite a sustained period of decline. Through, I guess, the mid part of the 20th century, which I guess in a sense is, depending on how you look at that, is maybe starting to recover from that.
I think actually it's the people, it's the place, it's the energy that I get from the city and the place that I can go and whatever, like there's always something to do in Glasgow. But I also love the weather, like even this cold weather, it's amazing.
Originally from the Netherlands, and I was studying there in Rotterdam, and I did my exchange to GSA when I was in the 4th year. I think Glasgow is very focused on the kinds of freedom that you get working as an artist, or even like organizing exhibitions or shows. It's more about, I feel like, coming from the Netherlands, I feel it's like they are more focused on what you cannot do, and here they're very focused on what you can do. I think because like quite often here people work with a budget, or if there's even one, because sometimes like there's just no money. You just try to look for alternatives, or like you challenge yourself a bit more in terms of like getting it done. I think that's what makes Glasgow quite interesting, is like within the arts at least. And I think that's why Glasgow is thriving quite well, because people really try to work around, you know, boundaries. Yeah, but it's not a really small community, but it's a very dense community, so everyone knows each other, despite the fact that it's probably still like a couple thousand people. So yeah, there's just friendships and like social connections and professional connections. They will all sort of blend in.
I moved here in '98. I moved here for the art school. I was at an art school in New York in 1997, I guess, 1998, and it wasn't a course that I was kind of happy with, and they suggested to come to one of the British schools for what I was looking for. Kind of the schools that had the best international reputation. I got into Glasgow. After a while, I did my master's in London. I moved back to Glasgow, and I opened a gallery, a not-for-profit space in Glasgow called Washington Garcia with 2 other artists, Ruth Barker and Douglas Moreland. There's a sense of real community, in a sense, and it's very supportive and it's very engaged. And I mean, there is competitiveness in every field and in every city, but it's not that cutthroat, razor-sharp thing that New York has, like swim or drown. I guess here you get to swim at a slower pace. It's just the way you develop peers here and colleagues, and there is a real sense of support, even if what you do is very different. And it doesn't seem to be like, yeah, like a kill or be killed sort of scenario. It's a much more helpful way to progress.
I've lived here for my whole life, and I studied at Glasgow School of Art myself, and that was a really exciting time for me. You know, there's a really healthy mix within Glasgow of people who are Glaswegian, have stayed here and become artists. People don't tend to migrate to London or other cities as they possibly did in the past. And also a lot of artists that are working in Glasgow have come here specifically to base their career as an artist. Certainly a lot of the artists that rent a studio from WASPs may have, you know, they've got a foothold here in Glasgow, and they may also work sometimes in Berlin or Amsterdam or London. We've moved our office and our main base is down here at the Brigget, which is, although it's quite cold today, it's an absolutely fantastic place to work. I can't imagine us getting a hold of a building like this anywhere else. We reached a crescendo this year when we had the Commonwealth Games, and there was a number of large scale projects that loads of people in the city were aware of because they were aware of the whole 2014 programme as a whole. A great example of that is the Jim Lambie Park, which is down next to the Barrowland. You know, this sort of coloured pathway with all the band names on it. You know, that's just an amazing, for that land to be used in that way.
I think you know, the art schools of the size and the cities of the size where I think it can maintain that quite sort of tight-knit community. It's quite lucky now as also being the last kind of independent art school within the UK that not being kind of submerged as part of a university and under those sort of slightly differing kind of criteria, I think it's able to kind of really benefit from having a sort of smaller community. It's quite a kind of social community where I think it's quite easy to meet people across different disciplines. So I think there's always a kind of level of kind of intrigue. You know, it's a city of kind of contrasts, and there's a lot of contradiction in it. But I guess sort of within that is also, you know, there's quite a lot of kind of intrigue because there's so many layers, in a sense, to the city. But I think it's also maybe not to kind of over-egg it slightly as well. I think one of the most kind of important aspects for me of the city is how kind of productive it is. You know, you know, there's maybe kind of just enough going on for you to kind of always be necessarily engaged with something, but there's still an aspect of kind of time and space for an element of kind of reflection, and in comparison to maybe other cities that I've lived in, you find that you do have a bit more of the kind of time and space here to be able to kind of devote to other kind of things that you do outside of the work.
I like the fact that it's an artist city, and you know, it's a nice basis, as we talked about before. You know, the rent's cheaper. It's kind of easier to have a kind of base here and to try things out. And you know, I travel a lot anyway, so it's kind of a nice base to have. So I suppose that is the idea of just like doing it for yourself, really. I mean, initially when we began the project space, it was because we wanted to show like a certain kind of work that we were all making, and there wasn't that many avenues at that point to show it, so we kind of did it ourselves.
Yeah, it has to do with the people, I think, and the Scottish friendly people and environment, that they want to help artists and everyone actually who wants to do something and wants to start and his or her career from Glasgow and work here. So we try to help everyone who is interested and wants to do something to promote art and to create art. 2015, the next year, is coming up to Glasgow, if I'm not mistaken, right? So it's going to be a great opportunity to just, for once again, for Glasgow to be in the centre of attention in the art world.
Glasgow's not a bad place to be kind of skint, you know, and trying stuff out. It's a lot of things seem possible.
No, it's like, I've heard some people referring to it as a Glasgow miracle. I'm not sure about that term though, but it seems that Glasgow is a great city, and it actually attracts people because it's not London and it's not like a small city, but it combines the best of these two, of both worlds. So someone like you can live here and create and be productive.
I hate the word Glasgow Miracle, and I know a lot of people have come to hate it as well, even though it probably helped a huge generation of Glasgow-based artists and organizations get on that kind of international map. I don't find it very helpful because, like you say, I find it a little bit derogatory. It's not a miracle. It happened here for a reason, and it continues happening here for a reason. There's an incredible art school here. There's incredible institutions. There's constantly a lot of artist-run activity that push artists forward and develop artist practice away from certain pressures like a commercial market, or which cities like New York and London are very, that heavily influences artists and that heavily influences the work they make to a detriment, you know. Whereas here that people don't have that, and the work that's made is good as a result, and because there's a freedom to do that, and that's not a miracle. That's like a lot of conditions that have come together to produce something really interesting and to make a city very rich. And yeah, it might be economically poor and a little bit tough around the edges, but it doesn't mean that that can't happen here.